Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Psychology of Money open live session. I'm currently in the process of going on Facebook and Instagram. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Welcome on Instagram. Welcome on Facebook. Hello, hello. My name is Lana. Shalom. I'm a certified Neurographic instructor. I'm a certified psychology of money trainer. I am here today for our weekly open live sessions. Today we are talking about actually our daily, right? Every weekday I go open, I provide open live session and we talk about various topics. Today, Monday, is our schedule for the psychology of money topic. And we are going to talk about something fascinating, something absolutely fantastic and interesting. And we are going to start. We are talking about something absolutely fascinating today. Just want to make sure, one second, just want to make sure I'm connected on Facebook, on Instagram. Yes, okay. So let's start. Welcome, welcome again. We are here today to talk about the fascinating subject of family and ancestry system. Most of what we're discussing here comes from the systemic constellation, the learning, the teachings of Bert Hellinger, and similar programs, okay? I would like to tell you today about the four main systemic structures, laws, otherwise they're also known as laws. And we're gonna discuss them. We are going to discuss what they are, discuss what they mean, and most importantly, we're going to figure out, we're going to discuss how they manifest itself? How do they, I would say not manifest, but rather how do they stay in the way of money manifestation, of financial growth and everything like that? Since our program is the psychology of money, that's exactly what we're discussing. What is happening within us? So what can we change? What can we transform in order to improve the way we see money, the way our relationship with money works, the way we interact with money, so we can bring transformation further on, okay? Today's topic is very interesting. It's one of my favorite topics, one of my most fascinated with topics. So let's start discussing, because it's absolutely interesting. It's a lot. And this is the most important, at the end of the session, I will be giving you an amazing practical exercise that you can actually do. It will not be Neurographica, but it's an amazing and very powerful exercise that you can actually do and start working through one of the structure of the family and ancestry system, okay? Okay, excellent. So, oh, welcome, Suhair. Welcome, welcome. So nice to see you, dear. Okay, let's start doing this, okay? The four main systemic structures for the family system and ancestry is One is belonging, hierarchy, second, third is balance, and the fourth is beingness, okay? We will be discussing each one separately now, okay? Just for you to fully understand, okay? The first law is called the law of belonging. And that law states that any soul that comes to the soul, to the system, belongs, or otherwise saying, it has the right to be in that system, okay? It stays in the system, okay? It also says that any soul that comes to the system deserves respect. Now, when we talk about the system, what are we talking about? We're talking about the soul system. We're talking about the ancestor system, okay? Any person, any soul, when we say the soul, even if the person wasn't born or the person was born and then passed away somehow, or the person, something was happening with the family, something was happening with the person during the lifetime. Again, we're going to discuss the details now. That person deserves to stay in the system. What does this mean? Okay. This discusses the fact that a lot of times people are excluded from their family system, okay, as socially unacceptable. Let's say people who use drugs and alcohols, people, we're talking about souls that were aborted, right? A woman often makes mistakes. And when she talks about the children, she would talk about the number of children who were born, and she will exclude the children who were either miscarried or aborted, okay? The soul has a right to be in the system, even if the body wasn't born, okay? It's a huge, huge topic. I know, honestly, we can go on for hours and hours, lots of discussion, but I'm giving you a very precise and concise, explanation of the system, so you can understand why certain glitches happen when within relationship interactions with money, okay? It's important to be understanding that for a woman, when she has a certain amount of, a woman usually refers to her children as 1, 2, 3, child number 1, 2, 3. It's important to keep in mind and to count the children, like I said, who were aborted, who were miscarriage, because their soul, even briefly, but did come to this world, stillborn, same thing, and kind of ignoring that soul within the system, within the structure of the family, of the ancestor, is excluding them, will have dire consequences, as this may lead to something called the entanglement, okay? Entanglement occurs when a person, right, decides to take upon or decides to looks at the ancestors. This happens completely subconsciously, unconsciously, looks at the ancestors and decides to take the destiny or the mission of the other soul within the system, within their own family system. And that's called an entanglement, because instead of the person fulfilling their own mission in life, their mission of their soul, they take upon themselves the mission of somebody else's soul. And that's not doing anything good for any of the souls, okay? We need to learn how to, it's important for people to start realizing that any person in the system, any soul, and that's why I'm saying soul, it's not necessarily person because it may not even be born. Any soul needs to be included in the system, okay? If the soul is not included, there is space is still there for that soul to be there, but if the soul is excluded by descendants, right? If people are not talking about it, if the woman is not talking about that, the soul that was supposed to come, but for whatever reason, we're not discussing why this happened, or it's not the point. The point is to acknowledge the fact that the soul is accepted. The soul has whatever the role is, however the brief time, but that soul still has a right to be into that family system. Okay, if that soul is not acknowledged, then the vacuum appears, okay? The dark vacuum appears, and yes, manifestations of money, interactions with money will go into that vacuum, okay? It will disappear. Very interesting to start noticing. Oh, Violetta, welcome, welcome. Glad to see you, dear. Interesting, okay? another things I want to tell you, another example would be a woman gives birth to a child, and then she marries another person, another guy, right? That sometimes happens, not the father of the child. And the child would grow up with an adoptive father. And there are instances when the mother wouldn't even tell the child that there is a real father, or that this father is not the real father, the other father is a real father, and all that stuff. So the real father is the person or the soul that is not acknowledged. Exclusion happens. The child may, either the child or even the grandchild, may get entanglements, may become entangled within the system, within the family system. Okay, maybe get the entanglement with his father, who this child may not even be aware, or even the grandfather. Okay, that happens. Example number 3, a woman gets divorced from her husband. She raises her children without any mentioning of the father, right? He's excluded from the system. She doesn't talk about it. She refuses to talk about it. He mistreated her. Again, we're not discussing why, does she have a right? It's not about that. We're giving the woman a right to her emotions, to her actions. Our emphasis right here is on the fact that this is actually happening, and what can we do? What are we learning? What are we understanding from this? What are the entanglements? This is the main idea. How does this affect our interaction with money? Okay, this is the main idea. We're not here to fully discuss the family systems and ancestry, the systemic constellations. I'm bringing this work only to explain to you that this affects the way we interact money, the way we see money, the way we bring money into our life, okay? So a woman who does not acknowledge to her children the fact that the children have a father and does not mention them, the children grow up without acknowledging their father, without acknowledging their ancestor, their parent, and that again creates a vacuum in that space. Okay, any person has a mother and a father. Okay, this is how the system works. Okay, everybody received, the mother is on the left side, the father is on the right side, right? Then if you ever done systemic constellations, you probably know, you always have like mother stands behind you, father stands behind you, mother is on the left side, I mentioned father is on the right side. If there is nobody there behind you, the right side, it's a vacuum. Anybody can fall into it. So a child may choose to, again, become entangled. Whether they want it or not, they start bringing that energy. They start getting entangled with the father. They start, and by the way, a lot of times this happens, right? A woman, the mother would see this and she would get annoyed or upset or very, very disappointed at the fact that this child starts acting just like the father. If the father is an alcoholic, the child may become an alcoholic. It's not just biological, by the way, guys, just so you know, everything is tied in. It's metaphysical. Yes, it is biological also, but it's also like what I'm saying here, it's metaphysical, metapsychological, metaspiritual. It's the entanglement within the family system and ancestries, okay? Drug addicts are the same way. A lot of times the family will not acknowledge that some member of the family was a drug addict, killer, right? A criminal. Like if somebody is in jail, right? They wouldn't talk about it, right? What is that famous movie? Back to the Future, guys. You remember, if any of you watch Back to the Future, a very famous movie, right? Remember how Marty always talk about this uncle who used to be in jail, but he was excluded from the family. People wouldn't talk about him, right? His mother wouldn't talk about it. And he remembers when he traveled to the past that he saw the child and he sees him in bed, right? In the crib. And he keeps telling him, you better get used to the bars, right? And again, it's excluded. People don't usually like to talk about somebody who, in their eyes, again, in the socially acceptable way, are losers, are failures, okay, of the socially successfulness, okay? So what do people do? They don't talk about it. They don't talk about a brother who's a criminal, somebody who's in jail, somebody who did something wrong, right? Maybe somebody who is a political asylum or something, right? In Soviet Union or in many totalitarian regimes, right? People wouldn't talk about family members who were, who were either exiled, or in my family, for example, it was my uncle who moved to America at a certain time, right? And that was not a socially acceptable practice. And that was actually punishable by the totalitarian regime, right? So my uncles, my mother, my uncles, my aunts would never talk about it, because that would mean being excluded, or being even worse, expelled from work, fired from work, not being accepted to any universities, because the people who would emigrate to capitalist countries, or even emigrate anywhere outside of Soviet Union, would consider to be what? Traitors, right? And again, socially unacceptable individuals. So people would be forced to exclude them from the family, right? Let's say, honestly, in my family, they were only excluded for social, but I knew about my uncle. Everybody would talk about him, but they would talk about him very, they would whisper, they would tell stories about him, they would tell, and sometimes he would send a letter, or sometimes he would call. That would happen like once a year. And then everybody, the whole family would gather together, and whoever would be the lucky enough to get the phone call would have, a whole story saying exact word and exact intonation my uncle would speak. Honestly, it was such a, so in his case, it wasn't fully excluded, right? As a system would want us to exclude him, but the other ways, he was revered, he was acknowledged, he was honored, so to say, right? But it's interesting to know that, a lot of times, most of the time, that's not what happened, right? In most of the time in Soviet Union, when somebody would be, a descendant, or somebody, political dissident, or somebody who would move to another country, they would be forced to exclude them from the system. Okay, what else means exclusion from the system, right? So it's interesting to start understanding that when somebody is excluded from the system, like we mentioned, somebody who is socially unacceptable, could be a child that we mentioned, could be a stillborn, miscarriage, or aborted child. The soul is excluded from the system, right? And the vacuum occurs. And what happens is that another person from the descendants will have to fill that space. Why? Because like I said, the vacuum, what happens with the vacuum? There's a lot of energy, a lot of calling into it, it sucks in. So the weakest of the descendants will start appearing, okay? Will take upon themselves the mission of that soul. Why? Because the soul otherwise is not being acknowledged. The soul otherwise is not being seen. This kind of violation of the law of belonging is called entanglement, okay? The person who takes upon himself, who becomes entangled with another soul of their ancestors, it kind of becomes not free for his own life. It becomes as if entangled with hands. Why is it called entanglement? It's as if the feet and the hands are like, tied in with like a rope, right? Entangled, right? So most of the time, again, the entanglement occurs with whom? With somebody whose life was not successful, right? Again, either socially unacceptable, or somebody who wasn't able to be fully born. The soul came into the system, but did not fully manifest itself into a person, into a body. So again, not successful, right? The descendant, the person who takes upon the entanglement, will start feeling sorry, will start feeling bad, and entanglement occurs, okay? Again, this happens completely subconscious. Guys, you're not thinking, okay, who do I become entangled with? Doesn't happen. It happens on a very subconscious, I would even say unconscious level, completely unconscious level, okay? A lot of times it may happen, most of the time within the system, it happens between the child and the parent, right? If the parent is deceased, or again, if the parent is excluded by another parent, if the mother excludes the father, or sometimes often that happens, right? The opposite, right? The father gets the rights to the child, right? and marries another woman, and the mother is not acknowledged, right? If we take the regular Cinderella story, right? What is Cinderella story? The mother is not acknowledged, right? She's substituted with a stepmother, right? Who in this case did not acknowledge the mother either, not just did not acknowledge, but further on abused the descendant, the child, right? And the father did not acknowledge the biological mother of Cinderella, right? And as a result, Cinderella kind of becomes entangled with the soul, with the fate, destiny of her mother, that the mother passed away, you know, not being successful. And as a result, what happens? She herself kind of attracts, kind of brings upon herself a lot of unfortunate events, so to say. Okay, again, I'm giving you a very, very simplistic explanation just to give you an understanding of how it works and why it works, okay? Again, completely unconscious, not like Cinderella was sitting and thinking, okay, I should start, you know, becoming entangled with my mother. No, completely unconscious. Often happens with, also happens with a sibling, right? If one of the sibling is deceased or wasn't born, didn't come into the lifetime, right? The soul came, but the child wasn't born. The sibling may take upon themselves the destiny, the fate to fulfill the destiny of the sibling. Okay, again, this happens because there is a vacuum. If the diseased sibling or the sibling who did not, who wasn't born is not acknowledged in the system, if she's not mentioned, right? If the mother talks only about the children who are alive, or any parent, the father is the same, by the way, then the child, the sibling may take upon themselves the entanglement, become entangled in the soul, in the destiny of their own brother or sister, okay? I'm looking what else to tell you. Okay, what happens when a person, right, like we mentioned, due to the social and acceptable practice or biological, right, not being born or stillborn child, what does this lead to within entanglements? Okay, so what kind of people? Okay, like I mentioned, somebody who is socially unacceptable, aborted children, people who died because of unfortunate situations in life, people who died out of hunger, people who died Holocaust, right? You know, any kind of genocide, the war, people who died, like I mentioned, the political asylums, right? Descendants, right? People who died because of egregors, right? Remember we talked about egregors last time. So people like that also are huge vacuum, right, of energy. So a lot of time descendants get sucked in. People with mysteries, okay, mysteries, okay. Somebody had a mystery, maybe disappeared, right? In my husband's family, let's say his father disappeared, right? And he says that people don't know what happened to him, right? And he doesn't talk much about it. Nobody talks much about it, right? He doesn't talk about it. My mother-in-law, let's say, doesn't talk about it. So there is a whole vacuum being created, right? That's something like I was started to think about it, and I'm started to think that it's something we need to talk about in the system, acknowledgement, right? Let's say in my personal history, it wasn't a mystery, but it was something similar where my father, right, who my parents were divorced when I was very little. And my mother didn't talk much about, right? There was abuse in the family and all of that stuff. And she refused to talk about him. She did not allow him to have any rights to see the children and everything like that. But there was a vacuum, right? Nowadays, like my father has passed away about 7 years ago. I found out about it. I acknowledged. Nowadays, I start doing the acknowledgement. I start bringing him, let's say for those of you who know the mandala of the Ancestry mandala, right? When we draw that, it's important to bring in both mother and father. So when you do any kind of work that acknowledges people within the family, people within your parents, you know, anybody who is excluded, you can do the same work I did it with a client of mine where we sat down and we drew kind of a family tree with her and her children, and we included, as a circle, everybody were included, even the children who were aborted or miscarried. Okay, that's very, very important to do that, because that's how we kind of make the system whole. Okay, that's how we make sure that there will be no vacuum and nobody will fall into that vacuum. Okay. Also could be people whom the system has refused. When we talk about the system, again, we're talking about the family system. We all know about the situations, right? And especially in like very rich families, right? When children would choose to do something not what the parent didn't expect them to do, right? And what would the parent do? I am disowning you. That's another exclusion from the system. That's very serious. That needs to be paid attention to. That needs to be very much acknowledged. It's important to start seeing, Uncle Phil, who was excluded, who was disowned. We need to bring him back into the system. Doesn't mean that you have to call Uncle Phil and start talking to him. It may not be something you need to do. It may not be something you may continue doing, but the point is to acknowledge within yourself. Okay, remember, the world around us is the way we see the system, right? And it's important to start seeing that system and saying, okay, if there is somebody who is disacknowledged by the system, was disowned or kicked out of the family because of something they did that the family did not accept, changing religion at one point, that was it, right? Again, choosing to be, not follow the family system, the family business, people do that, right? Very traditional families, right? You have to follow, become also a lawyer or become a doctor, or, you're expected to take upon yourself the family business, wherever the father opened the store, anything kind of business, any kind of system. The child, let's say, grows up and says, I want to be an artist, or I want to be, I don't know, somebody else. A lot of times parents disown them, and it's important to kind of, as long as you start acknowledging and saying, there was Aunt Elma, right? Aunt Emily, who doesn't come to family reunions or family gatherings, but I want to acknowledge her. As soon as you say that, again, there are acceptance phrases, there are whole acceptance speeches, okay, that we can do, and we do them, by the way, at our practical sessions when we gather for the financial regeneration course, right? This week we're having Wednesday and Friday, by the way, 2 last sessions for our financial regeneration course. That's exactly what we do. While we do the Neurographic drawing, we do a lot of acceptance speeches, talking to people, okay, talking to aborted children, miscarriage children. We discuss this. We talk to people who have passed away, and we kind of regenerate the system, regenerate the fact that this soul has a right to be in the system. We acknowledge the soul, and then, we say special phrases and everything. So definitely within the practical system, that's not something I can do in the open, because of the nature of the work. It's very personal, people share. So I usually do this in the closed sessions, okay? Okay, what else? So you have to be also very, very careful when it comes to naming somebody after whoever is diseased, or whoever passed away young, or whoever, again, was excluded somehow from the system, maybe political dissident. Whenever you're naming a child after somebody in the family, always think carefully, did the person, whoever you want to name in honor of somebody, right? Did that person have a good faith? Was that person successful? If that person wasn't successful, right, it's very important to either give double names, right? The family name. I know a lot of time people do this because they want to keep the memory of somebody who's passed away. And yes, according to many traditional practices, traditions, religious traditions, I know, right? I know in Judaism, they do this. If somebody passed away, they take a name from the family and they give it to the child. It's very important to, again, keep in mind what was the fate, right? By the way, in Judaism, they do say that if somebody passed away very young, you can take the name, but then you always give another name. You always give double name, right? You give like a name that means life, like vitality, like there's Chaya, or Chaya, which means life in Hebrew. So a lot of times when you take a name for somebody, from somebody in the family, make sure that either that that ancestor had a good life, or just give them another name, or you can change the name a bit just to kind of signify, like that this fate can be changed. Okay, it's very important to keep that in mind, because it's important. Name is very important. Okay, maybe one day I'll do a session on names, how names come, how does a person get named. It's very metaphysical. Okay, any name of a person, no matter how many names a person has, means something, and it's a contribution to that person's destiny. And the name actually has clues to what you can do and what you should be doing within your destiny. Okay, within your lifetime. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Let's go further. Now we're going to go to the next law. It's called the law of hierarchy. Okay, the law of hierarchy, two main understandings of the law of hierarchy is, number one, whoever comes earlier has an advantage. Whoever comes later, younger members of the family system, receive better resources. Okay, what does it mean? The olders will always be older. Whoever comes earlier always stays older. Whoever comes later always becomes younger. Okay, it's like I was saying that last week, right, in one of the sessions. I have a brother who is 3 years older, right? God bless him. And it doesn't matter, right? Let's say when children sometimes think that if, like my children would say that when I grow up, I'm going to be older than you. They say to the older child, because they don't understand that there's always a difference, right? No matter what, this is how time works. With every minute we become older, we grow older, we become bigger, right? We kind of grow, but the difference in age always stays the same, right? We can never be older than our parents. We can never be older than our older siblings, right? So that's something always important to understand. The glitch in the system often occurs when younger want to take the place of older, right? This happens, by the way, with girls, right? Girls, sometimes there are some families where I see the girls where she plays the role of a mother, right? She wants to be like mother. And sometimes she will act in the way where she thinks that she's better, or she's bigger, or she's a better mother, or there's some kind of glitch, right? Where she starts, there's also like an entanglement of a kind where she starts thinking or acting like a mother, right? Sometimes often happens with oldest children in the family, right? Especially when there's like, more than 2 or 3 children, right? Sometimes it happens more, actually even when 2 children, right? When older siblings take, like kind of become, what do you call that? Like foster parent to their younger sibling, right? And that often happens when the mother works a lot, or when the mother is busy, or sometimes happen when the mother is, for some psychological or emotional reason, is unavailable to the children. A sibling often will kind of take that space, will act as if they will be a part of that. They act as if they're the parent, and they start taking full care of their sibling. Okay, you have to be very careful. Okay, if you see your child acting like that, it's I'm not saying say don't help me at all. No, the child needs to help, but it's important for the child to understand the hierarchy, to understand that they're a sibling. Okay, by the way, by the law of hierarchy, siblings are on the same level. Okay, parents are higher, children are lower, right? There's always, and on the same level as parents are aunts and uncles. Then comes grandparents, are even a higher level, right? So grandparents, parents, children. Okay, when it comes to siblings, again, always to understand, but siblings can have a different kind of interaction than older sibling, younger sibling can have a different interactions. Okay. Why is this important? So when a child starts acting like a parent, whether a son starts acting like a father or a daughter starts acting like a mother, most of the time they assume the same sex at certain age, right? By the way, when they get older, they may assume the opposite sex, right? A girl may act like a father, maybe more, boyish. And again, this has nothing to do with the way she dresses or the way she behaves. It's completely subconscious. It's the way, she may act the way she saw her father act, maybe more focused on money or more focused on structure. It's, again, this topic is much more deeper than what I'm going to give you now. I'm giving you a very simple, okay, simplistic way. Most of the time, girls behave like their mother, right? This will bring to a certain habit, the way that women, by the way, that girl will grow up to behave like a woman the same way, right? She will be powering to her sibling. What is that movie? It's 27 Dresses movie, guys, remember? There's a movie, there are a few movies like that, but just came to my mind now, right? That story where she felt so parental to her younger sister because her mother passed away and her father was, grief stricken. So she assumed the role of a parent to her younger sister. And then as a result, the person learns to only give and is unable to take, okay? The person learns to play this role of giving. And then that goes toward everybody around her in the environment. And that's not a healthy, we're going to talk about it in the next program, in the next law, the law of balance, but that's not a healthy way to grow up, right? Most of the time how does it work? How does it manifest? How do you see it when it comes to money? When a person works a lot of work, but the money does not increase. The income, the amount of money stays the same. And the emphasis here that the person has is on actual working, on actual toiling, okay? Where they think that they need to be always working hard or toiling hard. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the more you work, the more you should be getting paid, which is the way it's supposed to work, okay? The more energy you invest in something, the more you receive. We talked about it. Remember when we did last week, the energy of money? The same thing here, guys. If I spend more time creating something, I will charge more money for that creation. However, if the person is more focused on the fact that they need to work hard, that they need to give more than receive, the money the person receives will not be the same amount that they originally invested. Okay, very important to understand this, okay? That the person will work just for the sake of working, not for the sake of receiving, in this case, money, right? Receiving something in return. In this case, we're talking about specifically money, okay? Very, very important, okay? It can also be, this feeling, again, this kind of behavior, by the way, can also be an entanglement, that the feeling that we're going to discuss this later on, there is no value of life, that the value of life can only see the person feels that their life has no value, except when they provide care for somebody, right? Except when maybe the parent only acknowledged them when they took care of their sibling or when they were helping. You know how nowadays it's not as much, but it used to be before. The idea of children helping chores would overtake anything else in the family, right? That was a way of life. We knew that, right? Like girls or even children, like a century or two ago, didn't go to school, right? Their job was to help in the family doing chores, right? So if children were only acknowledged based on the chores they provided, right? Not based on the fact, like, going back to the previous, that they belong in the system just because you're born. I tell it to my children, thank you for being born. Thank you for coming to me. Thank you for choosing me as a parent. By the way, that's another law of the family system. Children choose their parents. Parents do not choose the children. Choose the children. Children choose their parents, okay? Just so you know, excuse me. And that's how it works, okay? So if the children are not acknowledged, except the fact that they work hard, they provide to the family, then that's what they're going to be used to. And that's what their whole life they're doing. They're running after this acknowledgement, after this love, that's unrequited love from the parent, Again, that's what we do in the practical session. We actually do special acknowledgement, acceptance phrases where we talk about being acknowledged and being accepted. The fact that, Your parents gave you everything they can. Okay, if your parent couldn't give you, and again, when I mention all of this, right, this is not for you to go and blame your mother, right? That's not, we're not playing a Freudian game here. You're not to call your parents and say, because of you, I'm like this. No, it's about acknowledging the fact that your parent brought you up the way they could, keeping in mind their life circumstances, right? We're going to do a session on the parental figure and understanding that parental figures are two totally different figures. Okay, one person, one figure within one parent, let's say mother, is somebody who gave birth to you. Okay, she carried you for 9 months and she gave birth to you, right? And another figure is somebody who is spending, your childhood with you and further on afterwards also, and giving you support, giving you love. Sometimes that's not always a possibility, right? Not always mothers are able to give you love because they don't have enough resources themselves, their life circumstances overtake them, and so on and so forth. So it's always something to keep in mind. This is something we need to keep in mind when we're discussing parental figures, when we're discussing what's happening, why do money come to us. The point here is not to blame your parents, but the point here is to start acknowledging and saying, yeah, my mother or my father gave to me as much as they could based on their life circumstances. Let's stop looking at the door that's closed, turn around and look which door is open. Where can you gain resources and do continue becoming successful and acknowledging and achieving something in life, okay? Like I mentioned, one of the law of hierarchy, okay? Violation of this law leads to something called loyalties. By the way, we will be doing a practical session on how to remove loyalties in your life, okay? At the end of the session, after I tell you a bit more about all of the system, okay? So loyalty is when a person, completely subconscious, completely unconscious, chooses to follow somebody else's destiny, to choose another soul within their family system, within their ancestors, and they follow the mission, the destiny of that soul. That does good to nobody, okay? The soul can only fulfill their mission being in their own body, okay? The soul cannot fulfill their mission through somebody else, okay? Through, all those, I don't know, Halloween time, right? All those horror stories about somebody living within somebody, all those omens and stuff. I don't remember all those horror stories. I wasn't so much into horror movies and everything like that. But all those stories, right? You have to be very careful when it comes to family systems. It does occur on a subconscious or unconscious level. It's not important to understand. So again, the practical session we're going to do at the end of today, today's session, I will tell you a nice practical exercise you can actually do and do this, get rid of loyalties, right? Even unconscious ways. But it's important to start understanding that this will be a closed door when it comes to money, receiving money, dealing with money, interaction with money, okay? Now, when it comes to hierarchy, one of the biggest thing I'm going to say, one of the most controversial is a friend of mine who knows much about constellation. Even he told me this is very controversial, what you're telling me, when I was, dealing, he was a friend, a client also, one of my first groups when we joined Neurographica. But one of the most controversial is this whole thing, a lot of practices, forgiving your parents, forgiving your mother. You have to be very careful. According to the laws of family system, we do not forgive somebody who is older than us. We can't forgive them. It's a glitch in the system. It's a myth. Okay, it's like saying, I'm forgiving God. Yes, I understand people have very painful circumstances sometimes in life, their childhood or the way things happen in life. We all have it. There's nobody in this life who doesn't have trauma. But it's very important to start understanding that there is a certain hierarchy, what I mentioned before, that your parents did as much as they could according to their life circumstances. Again, not going into any specifics like abuse and stuff like that. That's something that needs to be dealt with in a personal session. But in general, I'm giving you the general understanding of the laws. You have to be very careful when it comes to you thinking you can forgive your parents. You cannot forgive your parents. You can Give your siblings, forgive your children, okay? Same thing happens, by the way, with your children. When you have a hard time forgiving your parents, your children will start creating resentment with you, because again, this is what? Creating a glitch in the system, okay? If you see your children acting as if they're, they're teenagers often act like this, right? They think they know better than their parent. They think they're bigger. I do that with my teenager children. I take them apart. I sit down and have a conversation with them, explaining to them the whole explanation about hierarchies, a system of hierarchy within the family system. And explaining to them that no matter what, now, even if they become a PhD, even if I'm in a PhD system myself right now, right, in a pre-learning program. But the point is, even if my child becomes a president of the United States, guess what? Right? I'm still the mother. I'm still higher in the system because I was born earlier. You guys understand what I'm trying to say with hierarchy? It's a bit of a complicated subject. Again, beyond the scope of this. Hey, Almut, nice to see you, dear. Beyond the scope of this, it's just not a very kind of quick session. I'm trying to fit it in within an hour. I'm already going over, right? But the idea is that it's very important to understand that we do not try to grow bigger than our parents or anybody in our system, right? And sometimes when we do, it also shows when we do loyalties, right? When we try to help the soul of our grandparents or an uncle and an aunt who were excluded, who were perished, maybe, who maybe a sibling who died young or something, we have to be very careful because we're trying to say, hey, you are a soul who is bigger than me, who is older than me, yet I'm trying to help you. It's like kind of silly. It's kind of a myth. You can't help somebody who's older than you, guys, okay? And we're not talking about helping your parents financially and everything like that's not what we're discussing here, okay? We're talking about a higher system, thinking that you are bigger in the system than your parents or your grandparents or any of your ancestors, and trying to help. We don't help. The only way we can help is being successful with our own mission in life. That's why it's so important. All of this work, all of the practical work that we do is to get back to listening to what our soul is, what is our soul's mission, and getting back to fulfilling it. Very, very important, okay? Again, I will give you a practical work with this at the end of the session today, okay? The next law within the family system is called, we just talked about forgiving the parent. The next law is the law of balance, okay? The law of balance states whoever took more will leave the family, okay? The family, that means interfamily separation, right? Those of you who are psychology know what I'm talking about, the separation system, right? The separation stage, right, of children, when older kids are living home, moving out, going away to college, renting their own place, right? This is all very natural, by the way, right? Currently, our generation is more used to it because it's financially more doable than used to be in previous generation, when children would continue living at home even when they grow up, even when they get married, right? The family systems would work out. And by the way, there was another way, maybe we'll do another session where we'll discuss when in traditional families, right? Still many cultural ways, right? Many cultural in many cultures, it's accepted for grandparents to live with children and grandchildren. It's something that we have to be very careful. Again, a lot of entanglement, a lot of loyalties happen there. But let's talk about something that happens, naturally. Children grow up and they leave. Why? Because they took more. They took out of the family system. Basically, they took all the resources you can provide to them as a parent, and they feel they're ready to move on. Okay, that happens. My daughter, she would be living for various reasons, right? My oldest daughter, she would live with a different family, right? Because she would board in a different school and everything. She would live with a different family since she was 16. Okay. Now she came back and she stays with me a lot. She stays with, with her grandmother. And at one point I'm having a discussion with her. I'm like, what's going on? Don't you want to live on your own? You're wanting to do this for a long time. And she said, very interesting. And I realized this is what it's about. She said, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like I need to get back into the family, live with the family, with the siblings, with your mom and dad, because she said like, I'm missing something. And, you know, I realized she talked about some resources that I guess she missed out when she moved out a bit, you know, prematurely, right? So usually children move out when they graduate school, when they go to college around the age of 18, right? By the way, a lot of times children don't do that either. They stay at home because, and that depends on the personality. Some personalities, maybe we'll do a session on Badzi where we talk about individual personalities of the children based on elements, you know, energies. We're going to talk about elements, by the way, this coming Thursday. But some children need more resources. They're not ready to move out of their family. Okay. And sometimes children stay until the age of 30 or 40. And that's something we're going to start looking at it and understanding that this has to do with loyalties, with maybe some kind of a glitch within the law of balance. Okay. The violation of this law leads to disbalance of giving and taking. Guys, if the child is used to the fact, let's say if the mother tells, and that often happens in many families and culturally it happens, right? Many cultures, parent, child, mothers, most of the time it's mothers, fathers too, by the way, but a lot of times it starts with the mothers on the younger level. Mothers will say, remember, I gave birth to you. It's your job to be next to me and take care of me when I grow old, right? So the child grows up feeling an obligation that they need to stay with their parent no matter what. Often happens with fathers, not as much, not on the same level. Fathers usually happens when it comes to businesses, okay? Fathers expect their children to take over the business. Most of the time it's the sons. Nowadays it can be also the daughters as women became more active in workspace, right, for the last century or and a half. But fathers is expectation to take over the idea, the success of the business. Mothers, it's actual life. You know, remember the sacrifices I did for you. Please remember that because you have to pay back. Okay, that's a huge glitch within the law of balance. That person grows up with inability to take, only to give. A lot of times, this is the situation where children live at home. 30, 40, they don't get married, you know, they stay. There is this loyalty developed. There is this entanglement with the fact that the mother suffered for me, so I have to kind of pay her back. And that cannot ever happen within this lifetime because the mother gave me more than her life. The mother is more than the suffering. You know, she sacrificed her life. So now I have to sacrifice my life. Completely unconscious. Again, a lot of things we're discussing here. It's not like a person conscious sits and thinks, okay, now I'm going to decide not to get married. No, really, very subconscious, very unconscious. Okay. So very important. Okay. The laws of hierarchy and the laws of balance are quite entangled here, right? Are very, a lot of times when person breaks the law or violates the law of balance, it's also the law of hierarchy, okay? It's again, talking about hierarchy, this is a time when we start, I see that a lot, children acting like parents to their parents. Strong violation of the law of hierarchy, law of balance. Guys, balance with hierarchy goes like this, like I showed you. It's like a waterfall, okay? Your ancestors are on top. You're on the bottom. The water goes down. You can only receive the waterfall. You cannot get back to you cannot turn around and, you know, try to put the water up. No, it doesn't work like that. It's receiving only goes down. And guess what? It's done for a reason because you receive the resources from your ancestors. And guess what? You use it, you create, you have children, and you give it further down to your children. Okay? And then your children take it from you. They should not be giving you back those resources. You should be taking it and going further, giving it to their children. You taking away resources from your children is like kind of taking away from your grandchildren. Again, speaking quite metaphorically and maybe even practically also, okay? Very careful with that, very important, okay? Learning how to do balance. Okay, balance also comes, guys, with the glitches with the law of balance comes when a person does not allow oneself to be richer than the one parents, right? When the parents tell them that, you know, the highest you can ever reach is be as rich as me. And children are not able to grow bigger than that. So that's very careful with the parent when you talk to your children. Important to acknowledge that the children can grow higher than you. Doesn't mean they will be bigger than you. There's a difference, guys. You guys understand? Being successful further is actually showing that you became successful in life, right? Also, balancing is in business, okay? When it comes to partnership and everything, balancing is very important. You need to always remember the balance in life. And balancing in money, guys, comes with charity, giving the 10% of the charity to 10% of your income to charity. That's a huge, huge balancing law. Trying to see what else I want to tell you about balance. Okay. Yeah. Balancing, guys. What else is balancing? Balancing also can be with something that not necessarily your family system, but got a kind of historically became involved. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you an example. During the war, a lot of people, right, let's say even the Holocaust stories, right, where people were saved by people who are other than their family, right? There is an entanglement. I mean, a good way entanglement happens where two family systems become connected, right? It can be people who they don't know at all, right? Somebody saving a baby, so many Holocaust stories I heard, right? Where the parent would be taken and the baby's left and somebody from the locals who's not, let's say, Jewish or somebody who's not prosecuted takes the baby and raises it their own, right? A lot of systems become entangled. So this is a law of balance on a karmic level. Just want to let you know, okay? It's important to acknowledge all of that. Now, I'm going to tell you a story within my family, my husband's family. My husband's grandfather, who was a political person at one point, a political reason at one point, and it was during the World War II, right, in Soviet Union. And then at one point, he was like, even he knew Stalin and everything. He was big, right? And he, at one point, as usually that happened, he became like somewhat of a political dissident, but he didn't grow out of favor fully. He wasn't, thank God, sent to Siberia or anything. He was sent back to his homeland. His homeland at that moment was the Middle Asia, the country of Tajikistan, Dushanbe, right? And that area during the world, so that happened, he was sent back, he was big in the political system, in the, political government. And then he became out of favor. That often happened with Stalin. People, if you ever heard about Soviet Union, this would happen. Thank God he wasn't killed. He wasn't sent anywhere except, one second. Let me answer this. Yeah. Okay. So he wasn't, thank God, killed or even sent in political, he wasn't sent to Siberia, but he was sent to some kind of political asylum. He was sent far away from the capital of Soviet Union, which was Moscow, and he was sent to his homeland. And he still had some privileges, but he wasn't as big of a person in the political government already. Now, what happened is that during the war, a lot of people would flee to the area of Middle Asia, right? From Russia, from Ukraine, all the areas which were actually fully occupied by Nazis, right? And they would flee to Middle Asia, which had lots of food, lots of vegetable. Again, not compare, a lot doesn't mean compared to what we have now, but people would still have potatoes and stuff, right? So my husband tells a story, and my mother-in-law would tell a story about people coming and staying in their families, when she was little, and she remembers this, or she I think she was born when she was 44 or 45, but her older sister, who was born in the 40s, or 38 or something, but she remembered how people would come and stay. They would stay for like a week before and until they find a shelter to stay somewhere else. And my husband's grandfathers, they had, he would to have ability to get more food than any other person. Let's say he would be able to have a sack of potatoes, which was huge back then, right? So they would share the food with these people who came to live in their families. That was huge, guys, right? So it's interesting to understand this balance. By the way, many years later, when my husband's aunt, the oldest aunt, she came to the US, right? She remember she coming for them to America. And she told the story how people would find her. They would find her and they would be descendants of people, her parents, or no, their parents or grandparents would be the people who stayed with her, with my husband's grandparents' family. Do you understand what's happening? The descendants would find the descendants of these people who saved them during the war, which like I'm getting, very emotional about it, but it's huge. And again, it has to do with the law of balance. This is very important to remember, okay? So balancing, that's what balancing is. People finding, they didn't give any monetary, there was nothing that has to do with money, by the way, but it's just calling and acknowledging. And when my husband's aunt was in the US, those people lived in the US, they said, can you come visit us, please? It's an honor to us. Right? My aunt didn't do anything to them personal, but her father saved their father or grandfather. I don't remember the details here. And there was an honor in giving thanks, this gratitude. So the power of gratitude, by the way, whatever we did at the Ho'oponopono course is huge. It's humongous and it's very important because when you do the gratitude, it's the system of balance that gets restored. Okay, very, very important to understand. Okay. The law of beingness is the last law we're going to discuss today. The law of beingness discusses the fact that the equilibrium of the system recovers at the expense of the descendant. What does that mean? Okay, that means if there's a glitch in the system, if there's a vacuum, if somebody doesn't get acknowledged, if somebody doesn't get balanced, if somebody, the hierarchy, one of the parents got disowned by their children, that happens too, we know that, right? What happens? The descendant will be the one who has what to take care of it. The descendant will have to be the one who karmically restores the system. Okay, so that's why doing all of these practices, practical practices, even saying the phrases itself, that's why I said in the practical sessions in the law, in the financial generation courses, what do I say? I say, even if you feel like it doesn't apply to you, you say it because you karmically regenerate, restore your system, okay? It does work, okay, guys? You're going to feel difference within your system, within your life, okay? Now, what happens? What are the glitches in the family system and ancestor system when any of those laws become broken? I'm going to give you details. Again, we actually work with all of those glitches within what we're doing now, financial generation. The next course I'm going to do in November is called Ready, Set, Practice, where we're going to work with fears, inhibitions, again, going back into family systems, restoring the system of balance, hierarchy, and everything else. And kind of regenerating yourself, okay? And then we're also going to work with psychology of money. So when a person feels that they're taking somebody else's destiny, they take the destiny of another soul, that's an entanglement, that's a law of the violation of the law of belonging. When somebody thinks they're bigger than their parent because they're more successful, they're richer, that's a violation of the law of hierarchy. When somebody becomes a rival to their parents, huge blow in the system, guys, FYI, right? We know that happens in the business, right? Often happens, right? When the son says, I'm gonna sue my parent, we'll hear about those crazy stories, right? Crazy stories, guys, have something to do with the family system, okay? Becoming a rival to the parent, violation of the law of hierarchy. Saving an ancestor, my grandmother, or I often do this work, where I work with, even without Neurographica, this can be done greatly with Neurographica, by the way, but where you find out that, you become entangled with the soul that, I don't know, died of unfortunate events, like I mentioned, like Holocaust, like war, hunger, all that stuff. In America, it's a Great Depression, right? Everything like that. I'm reading now the biography of Stan Lee, the creator of Marvel Comics, right? Fascinating story. And he talks a lot about having the fact that his success came from the fact that he saw his father, who lost everything during the Great Depression, and his drive to become successful was driven by avoiding to be as unsuccessful as his father was, avoiding having this bickering in the family where the parents weren't happy because of the family issue, because of the money issue. So a lot of times we need to look into it. Right? Nowadays, by the way, it doesn't work. We need to be more positive. We cannot try to become successful in business in order to save the soul of somebody who was unsuccessful in business. Very careful, okay? Very, very careful that we need to look into that. Survivor's guilt, we work with that, right? What we discussed, where the child will stay with the parent, taking care of, most of the time it's a mother, right? Taking care of the mother because she sacrificed her life, right? My mother-in-law does it, right? Soviet style. She, and I told all this loss to my husband, and afterwards he became much more, it really did help him, right? He started understanding that it's a glitch. You cannot save your mother. Now we teach him every time he falls, right? With becoming savior to his parent, guys, you have to be very careful. You cannot save your parents. Guess why? Because they're older than you. It's a silly to try to save your parents. You can help them, but you cannot save them. You cannot be a parent to them. Very, very important to understand, to see this glitch and to do, something about it, okay? Okay. What else? To take the place of the excluded, we talked about it, when subconsciously or unconsciously a person feels that that the living, that person who passed away for whatever reason takes precedence, okay? And it's an entanglement of a sort also. To take upon oneself the pain of the ancestor, that's a loyalty. Okay, we're going to actually do a practical exercise on the loyalty. We cannot take the pain of an ancestors. And ancestors, it's important to start understanding that ancestors are stronger than us. They're bigger than us. And guess what? Even if they had some unfortunate circumstances in life, guess what? They're successful. Do you know why? Because they survived through you. You are the survivor of this family. Okay, so the family didn't die, didn't end. There is still continuation of the line, and that's the success in the bigger realm. Okay, continuation of life. Okay, and sometimes there are mysteries or vendettas within the history family system, right? When somebody takes an oath, and the whole Romeo Juliet kind of thing, right? A very, by the way, family system story, right? Where the vendettas of the parents who took an oath to destroy each other became like the children couldn't overcome, and they kind of took upon themselves, kind of became a victim of that oath. So again, lots of work within there. Now, glitches in the family system like survival's guilt, right? Right. I want to give you the practical session now. Practical exercise. I'm going to give you an interesting exercise, how to remove the violation of the law of hierarchy. Okay. Okay. Loyalty. Let me repeat again with loyalty. Loyalty is when a person, due to some mechanisms, become loyal to somebody from the ancestors. Okay. This happens completely sub or unconscious. Okay. The person decides, again, unconsciously, that due to being loyal to somebody within their family or ancestral system, on a general or an individual level, they choose the level of the soul to become loyal to the idea or concept that another person from that family had. Okay. It could be a person who is, One of the ancestors started some kind of business and wasn't successful, and the person passed away thinking, why couldn't I be successful within that area? So the descendant takes upon themselves to fulfill that destiny within that area, even though their own soul mission is to do something else in life. Okay. Oh, there you go. Another example I have. When a person in a family system had money taken away, right? Again, talking about political, communist regime, totalitarian regimes, right? When they lost the money, right? The descendant will feel obligated to help that ancestor by staying away from money. Okay, saying, okay, having lots of money, which means you can become a political asylum, right? You will be kicked out of the system, of social system. Okay. Somebody lost money from the family system due to business failure. The person may become loyal and stay away from any business starting, okay? Or the person may start a business, but constantly make choices that inevitably bring the business to fail, because the idea again here is that the belief system is that, if I earn a lot of money, I'm going to lose it anyway. So why bother? Why would I want to grow, go higher so I can fall deeper, kind of say. Let me tell you what happens. Okay. The loyalty is expressed through various models and patterns of behavior, okay, such as affiliation and love. Affiliation occurs at the level of the reptilian part of the brain, okay? I'm gonna go further. I'm not gonna give you so much explanation. I wanna give you the practical, okay? Okay, this is what you do, okay? So when a person sets a name and a goal, again, subconsciously, to carry another ancestor's pain and sorrow, then the real goal is belonging to this lifetime will stop being a priority, okay? The person becomes not occupied with their own mission, with the fact to make their life successful, but rather to fix the destiny of that other ancestor's soul. Okay, so what's happening here? This is what we do as a physical exercise. Prepare 3 plates and 2 types of grains. Okay, I gave you a picture of the grains here. Those of you on Instagram, I'm just explaining it to you. Okay, so it's important to understand 2 types of grain. Okay, you take 3 plates, 1 plate, which is the bigger plate, okay, and 2 smaller ones. The bigger plate will have 2 types of grain. The 2 types of grain has to be 1 part would be bigger grains, and when I say grains, it can also be beans, right? Produce maybe. Right, bigger, such as beans, legumes, right? Can be pasta also. But beans is better than pasta, just letting you know. And another type of item in the plate should be smaller, like actual grains, like rice, like maybe lentil, right? Like little tiny beans. I would say rice and bigger beans would be the best way. But if you can't find that in the store, you can do with some other substitution. The important part is, in the plate, you have to mix the bigger type of grains or beans with the smaller types of grains, okay? It can be rice, it can be buckwheat, it can be couscous, right? I don't know, what else? Bulgur, any type of a grain, you mix it with big beans, okay? Beans can be, I don't know the types of beans that much, okay? Beans can be, guys, look up beans. I'm not so big on beans. Red kidney beans, I think, the big beans, legumes, okay? And your job is to put that big plate with mixed grains and beans in the middle and 2 plates on the side, okay? Now you take a piece of paper and you start counting how many people are in your family system altogether. You start with 2, your mother and your father. Okay, and then you start going, those of you who ever did the ancestral model, you know what I'm talking about, right? You start going, your mother had their mother and her father, right? And they, each side of them had, her mother had mother and father, and her father had mother and father, and same thing you do with your father's side, your father had mother and father, then his maternal side, my maternal, let's say, whatever, his mother had mother and the father, his father had all of that. Count how many people, okay? I don't remember now. I think we counted it at the Ancestors Mandala. I really don't remember now. But that's what happens, right? You count it up. And then this is the meditation you do, okay? Close your eyes, put those plates in front of you, the other two smaller plates on the sides, or one on each side, okay? Close your eyes, and this is the meditation you're going to do, okay? Imagine in your mind, imagine all of your ancestors lined up behind you, okay? Your father's side will be on the right side, your left mother's side will be on the left side. And you will see that at one point you watch them line up, and you start noticing something. You start noticing that some people within your ancestors are like lighting up. They have some kind of light to them. But then there is some people, and when I say light, I mean like yellow or white light, but there are some people that have like a sphere around them, but it's not yellow or white, it's the opposite, it's dark. It can also be like some empty spaces, right? The empty spaces are for those members within your ancestors who were disowned or who were expelled from the system. Remember what I told you, there's a vacuum, there's some kind of black sphere, black hole they also called, right? But also you will see some ancestors that have a black sphere, not a light sphere, you know how they do in those pictures, in those drawings, you know, like religious drawings, but the opposite, you know, like how they draw angels with like a light sphere around them. So this is the opposite. There's a dark sphere. So most of the time, and the dark sphere can even overtake the light that the other members, some members will have the light and some members will have this darkness around them, okay? The ancestors with the darkness are the ones who have sorrow and pain. Most of the time, at this level, okay, this generation, the human soul will get attracted to those with a dark sphere, okay, with the darkness around them, because they feel the necessity to save, okay? But we have to remember, the system is always balanced, guys. This is number one rule. Remember the law of balance? Your ancestor system, there's always pluses and minuses, okay? The amount of people who had sorrow is equal to the amount of people who were happy and successful. The only thing is that the soul always tends to see the people who were with the dark sphere, who were sorrowed, who had pain, right? Right? It's like in parenting, this is called negative reinforcements. When the crying child gets more attention from a parent than the child who behaves well or quietly reads a book, right? That happens. Same thing is with our conscious and our memory. It remembers the pain and hurt more than the good experience. We know that that's how it works in the human behavior, right? In spite of what our memory may tell us, however, everything is always balanced in the system, the good and the bad, the positive and negative is always in balance. Since you are here at this moment in life, you are alive, thank God. That means your family system has survived. It would have never happened if the system would not have resources for that, okay? Which means in order for a system to have resources to go forward, to continue surviving, having more children, you know, procreating, the system has to be balanced. Your family, you are here because your family has enough resources to last for all your ancestors and your grandparents and parents. And also for you, and then your kids and your kids' kids, and so on and so forth, okay? A greater system of resources, okay? The resources comes always from ancestors. Now, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start choosing. We're gonna start paying attention, not like what I mentioned, you know, not to the ancestors with the darkness, but rather to the ancestors with the light around them, okay? We're gonna start understanding and realizing that your family system will be better. You will bring resources to your family system if you become successful, rich, strong, and then you take the resources and you bring it to your children, okay? And this way, your family system will continue to procreating. Again, it's a glitch that you need to save somebody. Okay, so in order to do that, we need to strengthen. What are we doing through this exercise? Okay, I'm going to explain to you what to do now. But the point of this, the purpose of this exercise is to highlight the positive memory and experience. So it will balance out all the negatives that is constantly carried within our collective unconscious, okay? We talked about collective unconscious last week. Okay, close your eyes and put your hand in this big bowl with a mixed beans and rice, okay? Start feeling the grains and the beans, touch it with your hands, okay? Take each type of the grain and the beans in your hand and start to censor it, okay? Sensorical. The beans, start associating the beans, the bigger grains are the people who are successful, who are strong, who are happy, who are resourceful within your system, okay? The smaller type of the food, the grains, right? The rice in this case, let's say, are people who were poor, who lost money in businesses, right? So they kind of literally became physically smaller, right? While holding these types of food, start realizing that both types of people were present within your family and ancestry system, right? Acknowledgement is very important. Start to acknowledge the people within your system who were rich, who were happy, successful, and resourceful, and who were able to carry on the family, the businesses, the children, right? Have many children, right? Who did great in their lifetime, who were very successful. Feel all of your ancestors lined up behind you. And with your hands, start feeling the scale and the magnitude of the many people within your heritage, within your ancestral system. Start making connection to those people. Start building a relationship and feeling the strong success, you know, their long-lasting effect on who you are today and how you feel toward money. Start making an alliance with the people who are successful. Start realizing you are one of them. You are a success story within your family, okay? While you're connecting, I'm gonna give you some very powerful acknowledgement phrases. Say, I'm aware, and I acknowledge everyone within my family system and my ancestry, who were deprived of their livelihood, who were poor, who were expelled, who were betrayed, whose money were taken away from them, who lived in poverty and constant need, who couldn't build their own welfare, who were left and became orphans and went hungry and homeless. I'm giving all of these people place and space within my life, within my family system and ancestors. After you finish this long phrase, you need to breathing in and out at least 3-4 times. Okay, take a minute or two. Breathing in and breathing out. Meanwhile, you continue holding the beans and the rice, okay? Can you continue saying, I'm aware, I can see and I acknowledge you. Breathing in and breathing out. I see your destiny and I honor your destiny. Guys, if you're watching me, you can just put your hand on the chest. Even if you're not doing the beans yet, you can do it afterward. You can put your hand on your chest and you say, these are very powerful karmic phrases, okay? And then you can say, very important, my destiny can be different from yours. I honor your stories, but that's not my story. I honor your pathway, but that's not my pathway. I acknowledge and I honor your suffering. Oh, very strong energy, because I just was told that, hey Gigi, I was told that my internet was off. Let me know if you're still watching it, if the internet is back on. That often happens when there's a very strong transformational program going on. You continue saying, I honor your suffering. I acknowledge and I honor your suffering, but it doesn't have to be the same for me. Then you continue, you say, I couldn't do anything back then, and I cannot do anything about that past now. Again, after each phrase, guys, breathing in and out 2-3 times. You will feel it. Some of you may feel, if you do this long enough, if you are with me in my financial generation course, you guys will feel in some, or if you were in other courses, by the way, also if you did these phrases with me before, you will start feeling some, maybe tingling, some kind of sensation within your body, within your aura. Okay, continue. Say, but for your memory, I will do something amazing with my life. You will know that everything was worth it. Breathing in and breathing out. And at this point, you say something It has to be something simple. Do not do anything complicated, like I'm going to fly to Paris and enjoy, I'm going to take a tour around the world. No, something very simple. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to eat an ice cream. I'm going to drink water. A colleague of mine who I did this with, she said, I'm going to take vanilla ice cream, put caramel and nuts on it, put chocolate sauce. She had like a whole procession and whipped cream on top, she said, and then I will eat it slowly. It was so good. I was like telling her, oh my God, I feel like I want to do this. But again, guys, this has to be something for your physical body. Very important. Acknowledging your physical body, okay? Acknowledging your presence, your reality, being realistically in the world, okay? It can be drinking water. It can be eating some kind of food. Again, something simple, guys. Do not take anything complicated. The worst thing is to say something you do and not do it. That will complicate the system even more. So do as simple as possible. I will take a shower today. You can say that, guys. That could be a way you telling your ancestor that this is the little pleasures of life, physical life, are an amazing manifestation of living, guys. Okay. And then you continue to differentiate the grains. What are you doing? You're going to take the beans and put it in one plate and take the rice and put it into another plate. Okay. You're going to do this, this exercise and continue your saying. Say, I'm aware and I acknowledge those within my family system and my ancestors who had a lot of money, who were able to build substantial businesses, who were rich, successful, happy, who were resourceful to my family system. And I give them place and space within my life, my family system, and my ancestry. After this, breathing for at least 1-2 minutes, okay? Guys, whenever you do the acknowledgement phrases, make sure none of your feet are, no knee over knee. Your feet has to be flatly on the ground. Your hands cannot be crossed over. Nothing should be crossed over, feet, hands, anything, okay? Breathing in and out for quite some time. Then you say, I see your destiny and I honor your destiny. My destiny can also be full of richness and resources, success and happiness, fulfillment and completion of my business ideas and creations. Breathing in and breathing out. You continue saying, in your memory, I will do something amazing with my life. And this is how you will know that everything was worth it, okay? This is where you can say same thing, like what I mentioned, very simple. Do not take anything complicated. Taking a shower, drinking water, eating ice cream or not eating ice cream, it's your choice. But better do something positive, better eating something or drinking or taking a walk, dancing, singing, spending time with my child, my children, spending time with my significant other, going out, again, nothing too complicated, nothing that involves multi-steps, simple. One step is the best. Drinking water, taking shower, very simple, has to do with your physical being, okay? Continue to do the unmixing, the separating of the two grains, okay? And continue. I have a few more phrases and I'm gonna let you go, okay? You continue saying, I have the right to choose and I choose to be loyal to the ones within my ancestors, within my family system, who are stronger and more successful within my family system. I choose to be a resource that enters my kin, that enters my family system, and I become a resource within my family system. I become resourceful within my family system. Breathing in and breathing out. You do this until you start having a physical sensation. Fullness within your chest, fullness within your body. Your back should be tingling. You should be feeling, you may feel hot, you may feel warm in your back because that's where your ancestors, you will feel the energy coming in your shoulders, in your back. The wing area is what I call the rib area in the back. I call it the wings because that's where your wings are mostly hidden, right? the wing area will become very, very powerful. You will feel your wings opening up and spreading. You will feel yourself becoming more powerful, having the ability to fly up, being able to be, since I remembered Stan Lee, right? Being able to superhero, having this superhero ability, right? Like my children often ask, well, what kind of superhero ability would you have if you would have a choice, right? And we play those games. Would you do this or that? Well, guess what? You choose your superhero ability, okay? And once you start feeling this fullness, this sensation warmth within your back, you open up, continue doing the grains until you start feeling fullness. By the way, if your grains finished, go get more. Or you can put back what you put in the plate and continue doing it until you become, like what I mentioned, physical sensation of fullness within your body, within your chest, within your stomach, it can be, right? For women, by the way, it can be within your uterus, right? Your back will feel warm. You can put your hands out like this, right? At that moment, and you say the following phrases. You came earlier and I came later. Breathing in and out. You are bigger and I'm smaller. You give and I take. You love me differently and I will love you differently, okay? You're changing this relationship from trying to save somebody to having a balanced love toward your ancestor, okay? You give and I take, you say. You have your pathway and I'm choosing to go my pathway. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm choosing to go my own pathway. Please give me resources. I need your support and resources to go and build and become successful within my pathway. You can say within my business, within my clientele, right? With my clients, with my practices. I'm ready to receive resources from you, you say. And this is how you sit for a minute or two, breathing in and breathing out. Feel the sensation coming into your hands, guys. You have to feel the tingling. It will feel tingling in your fingers, in your hands. When you do this, you can do this kind of meditation. You can do 2 minutes, 3 minutes, as much as you can, okay? As much as you feel yourself filling up with energies toward your hands, and you take it from your hand to further on toward your arms and infusing it into your body, okay? Okay. And very important after that, you look forward, okay? Kind of find the further spot in your room to look really, really as further away, like going, looking into the future kind of metaphorically. And think, what are the resources you just received? Maybe come up with one. You can do few, but those of you, who have been working with this with me in different practices, take a piece of paper and just write down one important resource that you feel you received, that became conscious. All the resources that you receive can be some completely subconscious and can be, hidden and everything. It will manifest itself somehow within your life, within your business, within your success. But why not identify and make one resource, and those in Neurographic, you know what I'm talking about? Make it in a fixing shape. Choose one resource and say, what is this one resource that I'm choosing to consciously look at today, and say it will help me to achieve my goal, whatever your goal is. Okay, you can write it down. Go to the Neurographic, you can draw that resource, okay? And after this exercise, you will start seeing some changes. It will not happen right away, guys. It will take some time, but you will start seeing changing patterns and environment and behavior, okay? You will start understanding that you pay attention to certain things differently. You become aware of certain things more or less, okay? Yeah, Violetta, absolutely. That's exactly the point. But I'll tell you, when you do the beings, you involve your body on the sensorical. Remember how we discussed the 5 senses, how it's so important. This is our operational consciousness. This is how reality comes into our world. When you do this with the beings, it's even more, it becomes more realistic within your life. Absolutely. So yes, I'm definitely inviting all of you to join and do this exercise with me, okay? I am wishing you, I'm going to leave this on this note. I'm going to leave you part of my PhD program that I'm involved in now in the Institute for Psychology of Creativity is the use of laughter. Okay, so I leave you with this powerful, powerful exercise, practical exercise that I just gave you. I want to leave you with a minute of laughter, maybe less than a minute. Let's say goodbye to each other by laughing out loud. Start feeling the power of laughter, which is so energetic, which is so powerful as a resource within your life. When you laugh, you express happiness, you express joy. Yeah, you're welcome, Violetta. I'm so glad you joined. You express joy, you express happiness, and you fuse your life with love and joy and emotions. So here, you're welcome. I'm so glad you stayed with me. An amazing, amazing exercise. I think I'm so glad you stayed. It's such a powerful. Yes, so here, you're welcome, sweetie. I'm leaving you with a laughter. Okay. Wishing you a wonderful day ahead. Yeah, wishing you luck with all of your exercises, all of your beginnings, and reminding you that tomorrow at 11 a.m., the Pyramid of Consciousness will be continued, and we're going to go into archetypes, guys. Tomorrow will be an amazing session. It would be a bit longer because I will be talking about all the archetypes. I'm learning them now, and they're quite amazing. Maybe we will even do some drawing. Okay, maybe we'll do the hero's journey with the archetypes. Okay. Wishing you a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful evening, wherever you are. Joy and happiness your way. May you be successful in everything you do. Okay, goodbye. See you tomorrow at 11 a.m.